Hey guys, it's Mike here, and I just read Dragon Ball Super Chapter 64. In this chapter, we witness the fallout from Chapter 63, where Maris unleashed his full angelic power and used it to beat down super perfect plagiarized Moro, smashing his diodes before Maris went the way of the Avengers and faded away into non-existence. That, however, had a silver lining when it was revealed that Goku needed a trigger to tap into Ultra Instinct once again, and Maris had just given that to him. And in this chapter, we saw as for the first time since the Tournament of Power, Goku's hair went full-on Godspeed Killua, and he attained the complete or now perfect Ultra Instinct. And Goku used it in this chapter to deliver a total beatdown of his opponent, totally wrecking Moro with a full OP nature of the technique, or I guess now form since they keep calling it one. Hey, at least we tried, right? And I'm going to be honest here, as I always am with these videos, and say that I wasn't looking forward to this chapter. The idea of Goku getting another power-up and winning just made me not even want to read it. But actually, upon reading this chapter, it ended up being pretty awesome, and gave us one of the coolest fights in the entire Super series so far. I bet some of you weren't expecting me to say that. First, let's talk about the fight, which was pretty much the entire chapter. Now, before this began, we saw a scene of Goku explaining to Jocko what happened, since he was pretty much in the dark about Maris being an angel until now. I've always liked Jocko as a character since I read his manga. He's a fun character who isn't powerful compared to the Z fighters, but adds a fun factor to whatever scene he's involved in. Although here, he's essentially more of a background character, he served as a way of Goku demonstrating his respect for Maris, because Goku realized that just like Jocko, the Angelic Patrolman was in the service of his universe, and also thought the outfits looked pretty cool, which I don't entirely disagree with. Although they don't really look as cool as the Saiyan or Frieza Force armor. This is also where Toyotaro actually improved upon an issue I've had with the depiction of Goku in this arc, and a theme that we've seen all throughout Super, that Goku only cares about fighting strong guys, and his enemies just so happen to be the strongest, which I'm sure you guys know by now I don't agree with based upon his depiction in Dragon Ball Z. But fortunately in this chapter, Goku discussed how he became a Galactic Patrolman himself, and that it's his job to protect the universe and stop Moro because he threatens it. And I really appreciate this scene because it shows how just one line of dialogue can improve upon and fix an ongoing issue. And it gave me slightly more interest in seeing the fight play out, since Goku does at least have some motivation for defeating Moro. Although they kind of lumped in every prior fight into that as well, which I'm kind of on the fence about. This is what led to Goku transforming into what Whis called Perfected Ultra Instinct, and the transformation scene itself was pretty awesome. You can actually see the effects of this power and form on the rest of the planet, much like when Goku went Super Saiyan 3 for the first time. Again, it's a little thing that greatly improves the scene and makes it feel more epic, especially when we're not in an endless void and can actually show the effects of this form on the surrounding world. And after this, Goku demonstrates exactly why this power is so lauded and OP, when he used it to totally wreck Moro. Now, although I wasn't the biggest fan of Maris doing this in the last chapter, I think it works much better here. With Goku, we at least got a build up to the fight and transformation. Goku using this power to totally beat down Moro works better as a payoff than the angelic plot device Maris showing up, nerfing him, and then double dying so Goku can power up. We could have easily just had Goku use his ability in this chapter to nerf Moro's powers, kind of like he did when he fought Jiren. Or maybe not even have had Moro absorb 7-3, ruining his design and giving him copy powers for a single chapter just so that he could beat Vegeta, but I digress. One thing I didn't like about the first time Goku went Master Ultra Instinct was how the power-up was quickly rendered less effective. In the anime, for instance, Goku was totally dominating Jiren, until Jiren just raged out, tapped into more power, and could suddenly match Goku. Now, Goku did get in some major hits and eventually won in the anime, but Jiren kept fighting back that whole time and nearly defeated Goku at one point. In the manga version, Jiren basically won because Goku lost the form. To me, this hurt the mystique of the power that transcends the gods, and made it feel like just another color swap. But in this chapter, they've fortunately gone in the other direction, because here Goku stomps Moro even worse than Maris did. The action and the art on display here is really top-notch by Toyotaro so far. Now, I usually don't criticize the art in the manga much, because I'm not exactly a master illustrator myself, and there are other channels with more knowledge of the subject, but you can really tell that Toybo put a lot of effort into this chapter, because it looks awesome. And I've been reading the JoJo manga lately, so my expectations for art are pretty high up there. Toyotaro does an excellent job here of showing off the power of perfected Ultra Instinct, as Goku effortlessly dodges all of Moro's attacks and totally dominates him in terms of power. His body is truly acting on its own and making it impossible for Moro to deal real damage, whether it's through physical attacks or his own magic, which ties in really well to Whis' statement in Resurrection F that mastering this ability would allow Goku and Vegeta to avoid all danger. I love the scene, for instance, where Moro is launching a barrage of punches against Goku, and he's blocking them all. It's just like the scene from The Matrix where Neo accepts that he is the one, and stops all of Agent Smith's attacks without even looking at him. Now maybe it's a little derivative, but it works much better here than the copy and paste moves from a couple chapters ago. Another scene I really liked was when Moro used his power to fire bursts of molten hot magma out from the earth below, basically making a labyrinth of fire, which is pretty metal on its own. But then Goku's body instantly traverses the labyrinth and then hits Moro before he can even react to what just happened. Then he falls directly onto one of his own attacks. That was just awesome. I also like the scene where Goku uses the binding technique that he used against Broly and then proceeds to do a jumping punch right into Moro's gut, with the shockwave so powerful it affects the entire world. And you can even see the environment changing throughout the fight as well, where by the end it's almost resembling the fight between Goku and Frieza on Namek, or even Gohan versus Dabura. And it's pretty ironic that after all of the Cell references that Toyotaro was making with Moro, like this scene right here, it's actually Goku who becomes perfect and stomps him. It's like poetry, it rhymes. Pretty much everything in this chapter was executed well, and I think that's its greatest strong suit, its execution. The idea for me of Goku just beating up Moro with ease wasn't one I was looking forward to. However, it's this great execution and the overall fun of the chapter that won me over. And that's kind of how Dragon Ball works at its best. A lot of the ideas don't sound that great on paper. Look at the Cell Saga, for instance. A mad scientist creates evil robots to kill the main characters, including one that looks like a cricket who eats the other robots and becomes perfect before being killed by an 11-year-old child with spiky bleached blonde hair after he gets upset about a robot that looks like a red-headed Arnold Schwarzenegger after he gets stepped on. Now how great does that sound? But because of Toriyama's excellent execution in that arc, it ends up being awesome, with some of the biggest heights of the franchise. This can also be said about Dragon Ball Super Broly. I never liked the original Broly movie and was really disappointed when Dragon Ball Super Broly was announced, and many other fans felt the same. And yet, the more materials came out, the more footage I saw, and when I finally saw the movie itself, I ended up loving it. Sure, the power scaling and Frieza's motivations aren't very good, but the execution of the material ended up being great, and Toriyama actually made me like a version of Broly. So that's kind of what I think happened here as well. Now, the only thing I didn't really like about this chapter was at the very end, where Goku seems to once again be making a dumb mistake with his enemy. When he's seemingly beaten Moro and a boulder falls on top of him, Moro cries out for help and begs for mercy. Something we've seen before with Frieza on Namek, and well, Frieza in general. Even his father begged for mercy. But Trunks was actually smart, so he responded by sending King Cold on an all-expenses-paid visit to Hell. I hear the hot tub's there to die for. But instead, Goku asked Jocko if they intended for Moro to die, even though he was standing right there when Vegeta asked this earlier. At this point, Jocko said that Moro was sentenced to death, and that Goku can do it here. At which point, Goku rips off his Galactic Patrol uniform and says that he'll fight as an Earthling. And Beerus was right on the money here when he said that he has a bad feeling about this. And it seems like another cut and paste of previous Goku mistakes where he's now fighting as an Earthling, which basically sounds to me like he's going to try and spare Moro after their fight is finished. Which to me and anyone with common sense left at this point knows is a terrible idea. Even Goku at this point should know that too. I mean, how many times has sparing his enemies cost him gravely? The last time he did it with Frieza, it led to his planet being destroyed, which he then at least corrected with Whis' help by going back in time and killing him. I mean, hell, he literally just watched Vegeta get screwed out of a win a few chapters ago when he waited too long. And within the course of this story, that was probably only like a few minutes ago. So at this point, Goku should be beyond sparing a dangerous monster like Moro. And yet it seems like they're telegraphing that Moro will find another way to win or survive, and then continue this ending even longer. which has already been way too dragged out as it is. And Moro being underneath the boulder and concealed seems especially suspicious, since he could be charging another special attack or planning something that we haven't seen before. Although I'm not so sure that he's going to absorb Goku or anything like that, because what would we even call him at that point? Super Perfect Ultra Instinct Planet Eater Moro? And I thought Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan was a mouthful. But this could also be a subversion, much like Goku vs. Frieza, where Goku spares Moro, only to be double-crossed with a final attack by the villain, and then Goku finishing the job. I guess it would be better than the alternative. However, this one scene at the very start of the chapter gives me an idea of what direction Toyotaro might be leading in, where we see a fleet of galactic patrolmen flying through space, when suddenly one of them senses something and says, "It feels like we just lost something important," before they all look behind them. Now, we never get any confirmation of what this is, but it's clearly important if Toyotaro began the chapter with it, so I think this thing in question is actually Majin Buu, and that the Grand Supreme Kai within him teleported away from the ship and likely to the Earth to help fight Moro. Of course, we didn't see him in this chapter, so I suspect that he won't appear until after whatever twist happens next time. It would make sense too, because the arc began with Buu being abducted and the explanation of how the Supreme Kai defeated Moro. So if it comes full circle and that happens again, it wouldn't be too bad of a conclusion. But how can Buu Kaioshin do this though? After all, he doesn't have any more God Ki. Well, aside from the fact that he's a god and should just be able to control Buu's Ki kind of like Goku and Vegeta do with their Super Saiyan God and Blue forms, but considering that they're ignoring that, there is one trick up his sleeve, which is absorption. So maybe Buu will just absorb the Saiyans and use their God Ki for one final sealing technique. Or maybe future Trunks watch the move on his cell phone on GodTube and will just show up and do it himself. I guess we'll all have to wait and see. Make sure to subscribe and enable all notifications so you can stay up to date with all of my videos. Thanks for watching and make sure to stick around because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.